the bad black bishop in the French, the bad French bishop. It's this bishop on c8, which at the moment, it's absolutely right, is blocked in by the pawn on e6. It does not have a lot of mobility. Now, there are various things you can do about that. You can sit and suffer and hope that it'll come out eventually, or you can try and exchange it off by playing b6 and bishop a6, and by exchanging off the bishop for white's potentially very strong attacking piece on f1, well, you've achieved something there. Or alternatively, if I can just put the pieces back, this bishop can be manoeuvred to a superb diagonal, as I'll reveal later on, and this piece can actually win you the game sometimes. First, I'd like to modestly show you one of my own games in this line, which demonstrates some of the most important strategies that you can play. This was against Chris Ward, and it's played in the Gausdal International in Norway in 1993. So, from this position, I played c5, attacking white's pawn chain. That's very important. Now I'm hoping that white will exchange off on c5 and will bring my bishop to a very nice square. So, sensibly, white played pawn to c3, so that after I capture on d4 you can recapture the pawn, maintaining this strong pawn chain. But I played the knight out to c6. Now that's increasing the pressure on both d4 and e5, as well as just bringing a piece out. So white brought the knight out to f3, protecting e5 and d4. Now I played the bishop out to d7. Now the bishop isn't going very far, it's true, but what I'm going to do, perhaps, is bring the rook to c8. Now we can see the other advantage of playing the pawn to c5 is that when I exchange on d4, I open up the c file and I can possibly use that later on. Let's put the rook back on a8. Now he played his bishop out to e2, preparing to get castled, and I played the knight to e7. Now I'm just trying to develop this piece. I can't develop it on f6 because of the pawn on e5, so I have to make other arrangements. But this knight is coming to an excellent square on f5, where it puts even more pressure on white's d4 pawn. Now, first of all, I just want to say that white can't really take the pawn on c5. This is too risky. It's losing control of the centre. In that case, I would play my knight to g6. And now there's no way that white can prevent me from playing knight takes e5, and I win this very valuable centre pawn, and then I'm left with this superb central pawn structure, f7, e6, d5, which automatically gives me the better game. Because of the potential pressure that black has on d4, the black knight is coming to f5, just increasing the pressure on d4. White played his knight out to a3. Now that looks very unusual indeed, but the idea is that the knight will come to c2 to give the pawn on d4 even more protection. So that's actually a very common move in this kind of position. Now I captured on d4, white recaptured, and I played the knight out to f5, just increasing the pressure. White brought the knight back to c2, protecting the pawn on d4, and I played rather an unusual move. I played the queen out to a5 check. This is a tricky move. I actually think it might be better to play the queen to b6 straight away, as we'll see in a later game. But anyway, let's press on. The idea is that when white blocks the check with bishop d2, as he did, then I play the queen back to b6. Now I'm threatening the pawn on d4 now, as well as the pawn on b2, and the only way to protect these two is to play the bishop to c3. Now my idea behind doing this is that in fact the bishop is not very well placed on c3, in that it's very blocked in, and I've taken it away from the c1 to h6 diagonal. Well, it's debatable whether this I've gained from this or not, but anyway, I played my pawn to a5, preventing white playing b4 at a later stage. I also perhaps might want to move a piece to b4 as well. White played his pawn out to a4, now that's fixing the b5 square, and perhaps he would like to play a bishop to b5, or maybe a knight round to a3 to b5. I brought my bishop out, preparing to castle, and white castled, and I followed suit. Now here, white played a really